Nearly 4 years ago, I started a journey to build a completely net zero house, living entirely from the sunshine on our solar panels and batteries throughout the night, ditching all the natural gas, and even charging our cars. It has not been an easy journey, and it's been a while, so I thought we'd make an update to tell you how it's going. Now, we're not 100% there, but recently we just got a whole lot closer. And I've learned a ton. I've got every electric bill I've gotten over nearly 4 years. I've got the data from the solar panels and the batteries and the cost and everything else. So if you've ever thought about being more self-reliant, this is the video for you. This is a 4-year update on our self-reliance journey. I'm Ricky, and this is 2-Bit Vinci. This video is brought to you by Sunseeker. We should probably start with just how rocky things were when we first bought our place in 2021. Here is a look at some of our electric bills. You can see here the first couple of bills were in the 400s, about 440, 612, and that was just electricity. The big reason probably was our pool, which had a fixed speed pool pump, and we were told to run about 10 hours a day, 2,000 watts, 10 hours, about 20 kilowatt hours a day on this thing. And because we didn't have any home automation or anything else to tell us how much energy we were using, those first couple of months were absolutely torture. So if we look in the early months, you can see our gas usage, which here in the US is measured in therms, was in the 200s, 138, giving us a price of $460. This was largely the pool and also for heating. If you notice here, this is when like the winter weather is over and it warms up in San Diego, those prices and numbers drop pretty dramatically until again in December when it picks back up. So most of our natural gas use is from heating. Now, a little bit of bad news, we haven't sorted that out yet. In our journey so far, we still have a gas furnace. So we have a air conditioning heat pump for air conditioning, but our furnace is still natural gas. So in the winter months, yeah, we have higher bills. And on average, our bills were in the $700 to $1,000 a month range. Now, when you're a new homeowner and you save all your money and you go through Esco and you buy a place, that's the last thing you want to deal with. And that's what we had to contend with. But for us, it was even more difficult because we had a bad roof, which was part of the reason why we were able to afford this place. It scared off a lot of buyers, and we had to replace the roof early on. I think the way to start thinking about this is to fully understand your situation. It's really hard to plan solar or batteries or any sort of a system when you don't have data. And in our case, we actually had a full year of winter and summer, spring and fall data to be able to make decisions from. So for the first 16 months, we actually didn't have solar. And you can kind of see just how expensive some of those bills were. $800 right there just for electricity, right? What makes our situation especially difficult is that this bill and our energy use isn't just for our house, it's for our business as well. Our house is actually a main house and a tiny little 1-bedroom house that we run our business out of. So all of our energy usage is in this bill. So this would be like if you were a business owner and you had a business, getting your electric bill for your business office and for your home in one bill. That does definitely make things trickier. So the first thing we tried was the Smart Home Panel 1. We had Delta Pros from EcoFlow already. So for about $1,500, we got a Smart Home Panel 1. We had it installed ourselves, and the office was kind of reduced. That's why some of these numbers aren't even higher than they are. We're not ready to put these panels up permanently, but let's just go and lay them out on a little area of land that's not being used and show you just how easily you could wire something like this up. But I don't have the data for exactly how much was produced in that time, so it's hard to say. But we were experimenting with everything that we could. When we installed the EcoFlow Smart Home Panel 1, it was a perfect chance for us to rip out the walls and redo the electrical because the electrical in here was really bad. And just as we noticed, there's no ground wire. It's just neutral and load. And that's what the issue is with this old style wiring. It was just a hazard waiting to happen. So we took a chance to just rip it all out and redo everything. Of course, being more self-reliant isn't just about electricity. It's about water management. And eventually, we want to grow our own food. We use gray water from all of our showers and redirect it into this, a gray water capture tank. From here, we have pumps and use gray water to water our lawn. And if you love a beautiful lawn, you have to check out our sponsor this week, this, the Sunseeker X3 Plus. This robot mower is a game changer. Setup is super easy. Find a good spot with a good line of sight to the sky, both for the dock and also for the antenna. The antenna relays location information even if the mower goes under trees or obstacles using real-time kinematic positioning, RTK. Plus, you don't need wires or anything else to set boundaries. Just create a zone, move the robot around to create an enclosed area, and you're set. It's whisper quiet at only 59 decibels. Seriously, you won't even know it's on. It's waterproof, and if it detects rain, it automatically goes back to home. And using Vision AI, it can detect up to 200 obstacles like pets, toys, or garden tools and avoid them. The biggest mistake I used to make was letting my lawn grow too tall and then cutting too much, damaging the grass and turning it yellow. This solves all that with constant cuts, and the smaller cuttings just get mulched back into your grass for bagless and truly hands-free operation. It covers up to 1,200 square meters on a single charge, climbs 30-degree slopes, and its float cutting system and short wheelbase adjust the blades for uneven terrain, eliminating scalping from traditional mowers. Plus, when the battery gets drained, it goes back to the dock automatically to recharge. Control everything from your phone, set no-go zones, schedule cuts, and even use voice commands with Alexa. The performance is seriously impressive. Check out the Sunseeker X3 Plus for yourself today and have the lawn of your dreams this summer. Links in the description. Huge thanks to Sunseeker and you. Now back to the show. So after a little bit of tinkering, I figured out what the big culprit was of our energy usage early on when we first moved in. It was the pool pump. We had a fixed speed pump that ran at full speed all the time. It pulled 2,400 watts for about 10 hours a day. That's 24 kilowatt hours a day, 720 kilowatt hours for the month. This is our old pump. Like we mentioned, it's a fixed speed. It runs at 3,500 RPM and it moves 78 gallons per minute in our configuration at 2,100 watts, which is a massive amount of energy. Now that was about the same as the rest of the house used combined. So it was doubling our bill. So we paid $800 and got this variable speed pump. And now we run it at 35 gallons per minute instead of 80, and it only uses 250 watts of power. And we run it for 16 hours. So as a result, we now went from 24 to 4 kilowatt hours a day. It was a huge savings early on. For you, if you have a pool, that is an upgrade I cannot recommend enough. And by the way, in terms of savings, this saves us 7,300 kilowatt hours a year. And at a price of 40 cents per kilowatt hour, this saves us $2,900 a year on our bills. So this will pay for itself in less than a year. That's the other variable I highly recommend you always look at. What's the payback period? For this, in San Diego, it was a no-brainer. So then we finally got our solar system permitted, approved, and installed. That happened in March of 2023. Phase 1 of our solar looks like this. We have a total of 29 panels on the main house. 12 here, 4 there, and 13 here. These are Trina 400 watt panels for a total of 11.6 kilowatts of power. The system cost us about $40,000 before tax credits. After tax credits, about $28,000. We went with Hoymiles microinverters because the company reached out to us, and I was really curious about 2-in-1 and 4-in-1 inverters. Typically, an inverter only goes to one panel, so you would need 29 of them. But their claim to fame is that they have 2-in-1 and 4-in-1 inverters where you plug in 4 solar panels into one inverter. And it's worked out really well. The costs are way better. Now, this system was installed by a company, so the costs were kind of out of our hands, and they were pretty high. It was over $3 per watt, but we did have to get a new roof, and it's a little bit hard to fully understand. Now, there have been some issues. For example, 3 of these panels are currently not producing, and the reason is the company that installed our solar didn't do the best job. When we first looked underneath them, you could see the wires hanging down, and so we think some of the crimps and some of the connection cables weren't done right, and that's been a little bit of a problem. Now, for us, it's not a big deal because we get up here and we clean them and we move them and we do experiments all the time. But if you're doing this and you don't want to have to mess with it, be sure to get a great installer. It's why we're trying to build a platform to make this easier for you. When that's available, we'll let you know, but definitely go with a good installer. Now, in phases 2 and 3, we'll talk more about the granularity of the pricing because we did it ourselves. So the blue line here is our home energy use. The green line is the solar production here. But this actually doesn't tell the whole story because our home energy use has been reduced by the amount that we make solar. So what we're going to do now is we're going to switch over to the home actual use. So now you can see that the home's usage is actually dramatically higher. And you'll notice that we kind of try to line up our home use with our solar production. And that's because on sunnier days, we could use appliances differently. If we play out our timeline with our solar production, here's what that looks like. All the way to May, which is where we'll end it. We're in June now, but the full month of data isn't in. But you can see here where we're at. Now, stay tuned till the end because we have made some changes that have completely shifted our usage and might potentially make us completely net zero. But as you can see, that is very recent. In most of the time, the purple, which is the home usage, is actually still higher than our solar. There's some days when, some parts of the year in the summertime when it's not. But by and large, we're still using more than we're creating. Let's talk a little bit about money and cost. Our solar system cost $36,000. But interestingly, we had to get a new roof first. So our roof was around $30,000 and our solar was $36,000. But the way that the installers adjusted everything was to call the solar price $40,000. And that was because there were certain parts of the roof and work that had to be done in order for the solar to work. So our total cost of $40,000 for a 10.9, around 11 kilowatt system, right around $3 per watt if you're doing the math at home. We got this in 2023 because rules were changing about net energy metering. We'll get back to that here in a second. So it was really imperative that we got our system in, and we did. But we also qualified for a 30% tax credit because of the system. So that brought our price down to $28,000 for an 11 kilowatt system. So how is that going? It's actually shocking. So this is the cost of electricity here, but you can see here that on average, we're paying around 45 to 55 cents per kilowatt hour. We mentioned our system is making over 1,000 kilowatt hours a month. On good months, closer to 2,000 kilowatt hours of energy. And if we just use a rough number of 50 cents, right, that's about $1,000 a month. And as of May, we have saved it says kilowatt hours, but this is dollars. We have saved $19,400, which means our $28,000 system is nearly already paid off in just 2 years. It becomes a no-brainer here in San Diego for this reason. Now, if your prices were 10 cents per kilowatt hour, which is common for a lot of people, you can basically divide these numbers by 5. So instead of saving about $20,000, we would have saved $4,000 at this point, right? If your bill prices were much lower. But it actually gets even more complicated because of net energy metering. Let's say your home energy usage on a given day looks like this. So historically, if you got solar, your production would look something like this. You'd make energy and it would fall off in the evening. So this extra energy right here, you would get a credit for. So back in the days of net energy metering 1 and 2, what most utilities would tell you is, look, this energy that you gave us, we'll let you get a 1-to-1 credit or close to a 1-to-1 credit to use later. So that energy, for example, could be used here when you don't have enough solar and your bill would be a wash. Those days are over. And it's because the utility doesn't want to pay for you to treat them as a battery because there's cost to that. And if they don't have a customer for this extra energy that you're producing, then they're having to pay you for something that they don't need or want. In California and Texas and certain states, there are times of the day when there's too much sunshine. There is more solar being produced than there is demand. And if you don't have a battery to put that in, that is just a waste. So they've passed legislation, and I can't get too mad at them for this. I kind of agree. It probably isn't fair long-term to let the grid have to pay for your extra energy if they don't want it or need it and can't find a customer for it. So that means that if you produce an extra 10 kilowatt hours of energy today, they'll give you 1 to 1.5 kilowatt hours on average of credit to use later. In NEM2, back in the days, you would have gotten the full 10 or close to it. So that's a huge drop off. And that means that overproducing or getting too much solar is going to increasingly be not worth it. What you're much better off doing is getting a battery. Because if you have a battery, instead of exporting this to the grid, you can charge your battery with this energy so that this battery goes into storage. And then this part of the curve, after the sun has gone down, for some period of time, you can power your house from your battery. And that's much more advantageous because now you don't need the grid to give you credit or act as a battery. You can store your own energy yourself and use it later when you need it. That's the premise. But for us, it's actually even more complicated because our goal isn't just to shave some of our bill and to get the cost down. We want to be completely net zero. To do that, it gets more complicated. So here is in red, a good day of solar production in December, and in blue, a good day of solar production for June. Let's take a look at what I call the time it takes to make 3 kilowatt hours. For us, 3 kilowatt hours is when we can start charging the battery back and we can power the whole house. And that it doesn't really matter. For you, it might be 1 or 2. But let's just use the 3 kilowatt number as a metric, right? So that means that this point right here, okay? On the summer days, that's actually around 7:30, 7:45. That means our solar is producing over 3 kilowatts by 7:45. But look how late that is in the winter. That's 10 a.m. And if you look at this, you notice that there's a decay much earlier on, and we're done by 2. So the window of solar is tiny, right? Compared to in the summer, it's this. The reason why this matters is because this is your window for battery energy storage. In the summer, all we have to do is power the home from this point till this point. That is our window of battery storage, okay? In the winter, we have to power our house all the way till here and here, which is most of the day. In fact, it's all but 4 hours of the day. That's pretty wild. That's what makes it so tricky to go completely net zero. Whereas in the summer, it's much, much less, and you need less batteries. Remember that your goal might be different than mine. We are going absolutely crazy. We're going all out. We're going to go completely net zero and never need the grid. That is a wildly challenging, ambitious goal. And hopefully this shows you why that is. You don't have to do that. If you just got one battery, right? You got a little bit of solar, you could peak shave your time during the day, store about 10 or 15 kilowatt hours, power yourself through 4 to 9 when the prices are the highest, and you'll still save a ton of money on your bills and be happy. But what I wanted to show you is the absolute extreme hardcore case of completely going net zero. So then right after the solar went in, Span had reached out and asked if we wanted to install a Span smart panel. And we said, yeah, of course. This is what I like to call a data nerd's dream, right? Because this thing gives you a lot of really cool insight into every circuit in your house. It'll show you how much power every single thing is using. And we've got that feeding into our Home Assistant dashboards to figure out things like car charging, pool power consumption, and so much more. This thing is really amazing. Now, if you go with a smaller battery system, like if you only had one Franklin A-Power, which can only put out 5 kilowatts, and you can't power your whole house, and you have a critical loads panel, this makes a ton of sense. Or if you don't have a full 200 amp service from the wall, you have a smaller, older home, and you don't want to do that upgrade, this could save you, because this can dynamically change what is critical. So you can have all your circuits in here and have this soft turn off any circuits that aren't critical. And you can change that over time. And then by doing so, you can keep everything backed up just like we have and turn off things that you don't need. For example, the air conditioning. You should have that on nice to have, and it'll turn off the minute the power goes out. Otherwise, you'll drain your batteries really quickly. For us, we actually don't even use that feature because with 25 kilowatts of output and almost 70 kilowatt hours of storage, we just do everything normally. We don't have to make any of those compromises. Then in July 2023, we got a Mr. Cool DIY heat pump. The reason why this was such an important thing is because this house, our office, had an old gas wall furnace, which was leaking natural gas and giving people headaches and stuff. We noticed it our first winter when we turned it on to get some warmth. It was bad. There was like a leak. Maybe there was some issues with it. We just shut off the entire system because I just didn't know what to do with it at that point. Once we rewired the house, that was the perfect time to just rip it out entirely. So there is no natural gas in the office. The one drawback is we don't have hot water in the office either because we haven't invested yet. So we know we want to go heat pump water heaters, and we need 2 of them. So sound off below if you have a recommendation, if you've used any and have experience or advice for us. We'd love to know what you think. We've seen some Ream systems at Home Depot, but let us know. But right now, there's no natural gas of any kind. But the Mr. Cool DIY heat pump took care of that because it is a reversible heat and cooling system, and it only uses about 800 watts of power when it's on full speed. And that has been a game changer. Summer and winter, it takes care of our office needs for both heating and cooling. Okay, then in August 2023, we got our whole home battery system for the house. Now, Franklin did send us these. We had to pay for the installation. So in terms of pricing, you'll have to go online and check, but it's pretty competitive with Tesla Powerwall and everything else. When we got these a couple years ago, they were lithium iron phosphate, and they're one of the highest rated batteries you can get. They've been bulletproof for us. We absolutely love them. And I mean, just look at the build quality and construction. It is top notch. Each one has a capacity usable of about 13.5 kilowatt hours for a total of 40.5 kilowatt hours of energy storage. Now, each one of these batteries can output 5,000 watts continuously. So that's 5, 10, 15 kilowatts continuous. And I think 7,500 for a burst period of time. But 15 kilowatts is a ton. That's almost everything in our house. So we didn't have to have any kind of a critical loads panel. We could just power the entire house. That's something I wanted to do because what's critical kind of depends on the day. And here's the indoor part. This is our main A-gate, the Franklin A-gate. This is the brains of the operation. This has grid running into it. It has the batteries running into it. It knows about the solar and everything else and makes all the decisions. If the grid goes down, it'll disconnect the grid and then just power the house from the batteries, charge them with solar and everything else. And then it waits for the grid and listens for a good clean signal. And when that nice sine wave is restored, it'll switch it back on and take care of all of that internally. That's what you get with a system of this caliber. You get the full on-grid experience, you get the UL listings and certifications and everything else. One thing I learned when I installed this system is a feature that they have called black start. So what happens if you have solar and you have batteries and the grid goes down for a week, right? Normally, when your batteries run all the way down, your microinverters won't work because when they don't detect any kind of a signal, they're programmed to shut down. So what this system will do is every hour, on the hour, starting at 7 a.m., it'll reserve a little bit of battery backup power to trick the panels into saying, hey, is the sun up yet? Are you guys working? Turn on. And it'll actually get your solar to charge the batteries back up. So maybe if you don't have enough storage to go all night, the batteries are depleted and it turns off and your fridge turns off for a couple of hours. The next day when the sun does come back up, it would start charging and turn back on again. That's a feature you want to make sure you have in whatever system you go with. The next step, we got a heat pump washer dryer. Why did that matter so much for us? Well, because we knew we didn't want natural gas. We had an old natural gas dryer before. So if we get rid of that and we go electric, the problem with a traditional electric dryer is they use between 3,500 and 4,000 watts of electricity for about an hour. Now we have kids, we do a lot of laundry, multiple loads a day. That is a huge burden to put on your batteries if you're trying to go off grid or net zero. For that reason, we went with a combo washer dryer system. We'll have a link here in the cards to a full review of that thing. We bought it with our own money, not sponsored, and we love it because the dryer load only pulls about 850 watts from the wall, down from 3,500 or 4,000 to 850 watts because of the heat pump system. Pardon the mess in here. We're doing renovations. Well, based on this video, I think you can probably tell we're always doing renovations. But for the office, we have the EcoFlow Smart Home Panel 2. All the circuits in the office run into here. And this has attachments over here to batteries. So we have 2 inverters and 2 batteries to each inverter for a total of 12 kilowatt hours inverter, 12 kilowatt hours inverter, for a total of 24 kilowatt hours of energy storage. So unlike the main house, which is on grid, meaning that any extra energy can get exported back to the grid, this system is completely isolated. So all those solar panels feed down here and they go into these 2 inverters on top. When we first got this system, we only had 1 inverter and we had 4 batteries to the 1 inverter. What happened was that we had too much solar. It's about 9 kilowatts of solar with those 24 panels, and that was beyond the limit of this. So we had 8 panels just turned off. We then went and bought a second inverter and split it up to have 2 batteries per inverter. That allowed us to be able to get all that solar into the battery. So this battery cost then isn't just storage, it's the inverter for it. And you plug it in right here, and that powers your house. Okay. The crazy thing is for the main house, we paid over $3 a watt, right? We paid 30 to 40,000, depending on how you justify the roofing cost for 11 kilowatts of solar. Here, this inverter and battery combo is about $7,000. So $7,000, 14 grand. The smart home panel is about $1,500. All in, our cost is about $21,800 for the solar and the batteries. And that's about $2 a watt, which means that it's about a third cheaper than our main house, and it has batteries. So that's what makes these kinds of systems so amazing. The Delta Pro Ultra has 2 solar inputs, one low voltage and one high voltage. So we've strung of our 24, 9 into the high voltage, and 3 into the low voltage, and then 9 into the high voltage, 3 into the low voltage, giving us all 24 batteries. Now, this system is not on grid. It can never export to the grid, which is good and bad. It's a lot simpler and it's a lot more self-contained at home. But the one drawback is when these batteries are full, the solar just turns off. You're not producing any energy. And right now that does happen. For example, let's see. Currently we're putting in 3,500 watts into this one and about 2,000 into that one. And they're about 90% charged. It is 11:30 in the afternoon. That means in about an hour, 30 minutes, this will be fully charged and this system will go off. The solar will not be producing. That's why the next phase is I want to add a third battery to each of these to have 6, 12, 18 kilowatt hours in each stack. That will take care of the office entirely, but it will cost around $2,000, and it's one of those things that we'll get to when we get to. Then there's the pool heat pump. We used to have a natural gas water heater, and it was very expensive to run. Our cost per therm is around $2.30, and our bills were $300 to $500 on days when we used the heater even a little. So we just kind of stopped using it for a while until we got this. This cost about $3,500. We installed it ourselves, not sponsored, and we love it because now we can heat the pool whenever we want. Right now the pool is 80 degrees, and because we don't have much car charging to do, we have it on. If the car's charges were lower, we wouldn't run this. We would just charge the cars. And that's the powerful thing about having a system like this. You can allocate pool heating to when you need it. Something you can't do if you got thermal water heaters that all they could do is heat water.
Now, we've been talking mostly about electricity, but that's not the whole story. There's also water. In November, we installed a gray water tank.
Look at what we found. This is an old septic tank. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna line the walls, clean it all out. We've been bleaching it and cleaning it out. And then we're gonna run all of our showers and sinks into here and use this to irrigate our lawn. All right, so this is our gray water tank. This is a little cutout door and it lives right down here. This stores about 500 gallons of water and it's really only meant for 1 or 2 day storage. In fact, I was so curious about this that I put a camera in there so we could monitor it. So this is what it looks like. Right now it's pretty full. So later on today, we're gonna use it to water the trees and the grass and everything else. If I had to guess how much water this saves, I'd say the average shower is 10 or 15 minutes. So let's say 30 gallons and there's maybe like 100 gallons a day. 100 gallons of water from all the showers that goes into here. And currently we only have one bathroom as a proof of concept feeding into this. And the outdoor pool shower feeds into this. But eventually we wanna have all the bathrooms feed into this to maximize that collection, because water is one of those precious resources here in San Diego, and we don't want to have to pay a lot of extra on our bills and keep everything lush. Now, we don't use this for our crops, that's fresh water, but we use this for all the trees and the lawn and everything else. Phase 2 of our home batteries was over here. We added 2 more Franklin A-Power batteries to the mix. That takes our total system storage to about 68 kilowatt hours of storage. And remember, we have 24 for the office, nearly 100 kilowatt hours of energy storage for the entire property. And with this add-on and the new solar that we'll talk about, we potentially could not need the grid at all. Now, adding on to the system was surprisingly easy. There's a communications cable that daisy chains across all the systems. So we have to run it under the ground over to here, and it connects to these 2 as well. When we added our extra 2 batteries to our Franklin system, we got a new combiner box down here. So all of the batteries run into here, and then this combiner runs into here. All 5 batteries talk to each other. There's load balancing, battery management, and everything else built in. And now our total system output is 25 kilowatts, which is, we could charge almost both cars and run the pool pump, for example, for 25 kilowatts. So we are completely set in terms of output and storage at 68 kilowatt hours.
Now, if you have wondered about adding on to your solar system, in the event that you already have something and you have net energy metering 2 or 1 of the good plans before they've made it worse, this is going to be really interesting to you. Our battery provider, Franklin, that we went with, has a system that allows you to add more solar and not lose your NEM2 status. For that reason, we were able to add phase 3 of our solar. Now this is 20 panels, and you can see they're mismatched because we basically just took whatever we had left over from other projects for this one. These are 400 watt tail sun, just like the office, and these are 350 watt panels that we've had for years during science experiments and other things that we've done in the past. But the total cost for the panels is about $2,800. Then we have 10 Hoy Miles 2-in-1 inverters. That means every 2 of these panels goes to 1 microinverter, and that cost about $150 each, so $1,500. The racking and installation hardware was $1,400, and the labor was $1,500, for a total price for a 7.5 kilowatt system of $7,200. That is less than $1 per watt, 3 times cheaper than our first system on our house. That gives you an idea of how affordable solar could be and how much money some of these companies are charging. We went with this instead of thermal water heating for our pool because we don't always need our pool heated, but this extra solar can charge the cars or run our future geothermal heater in the winter when we don't swim or anything else. This is way more flexible. It can power anything, car charging, heat the pool, and so much more. And between this and the new batteries, the last couple of months, we've been basically off grid. So finally, I want to leave you with a little bit of advice. So it's really hard to try and think of everything. These are evolving things. And one thing that I've learned about myself is I love systems engineering. I love building a system. It took a year to really understand the ins and outs of where our problems were. That pool pump, for example, I wouldn't have thought that was such a major pain, but it was. And then there's the Jevons paradox, which says that as something gets easier and cheaper or more efficient, you'll use it more, right? This is why when you build more roads, traffic doesn't go down, it actually goes up. It's the same thing here. We use more and more and more energy than ever as we've added more solar. Why? Well, because now our pool is actually warm. Our pool is 83 degrees right now, which is exactly where we want it to be. It was never like that before. Also our cars. We only charge our cars when it's sunny. We don't charge at night. We charge during the day on days when there's excess sunshine. Because both of our EVs have around 300 miles of range, we can easily go 3 or 4 days without charging. And then on that 5th day when the sun's back out, charge it back, or over the next couple of days, charge it back to full. So because of our high prices, our payback period is going to be around 4 years, which is crazy to me. And I know that might not be the case for everybody, but our add-on pool system, we actually installed ourselves. We have a contractor now that's part of our payroll. He works a couple days a week for us, and we've learned so much about solar. When you watch this, we might have our solar course on everything you need to about installing solar available. If we do, we'll link it down below. But there's a lot of things you can do to try to bring the cost down. Don't feel stressed to have to get a huge system today. My journey has been long. We have added on to it. We have messed with things. We've tweaked and fine-tuned. That's something I highly recommend for everybody. You don't have to get it all right away. Solar installers will try to come and tell you to install this massive system on day one because they might not see you again and they want to just get a big check. But you really shouldn't do that. You probably should be better off just adding on to it over time. And like we mentioned, if you pick a battery provider like Franklin Watt Hour, the one we have, that has options for adding on solar without losing NEM, you can even add on to it later. So there's a lot, I understand, but hopefully this gives you a better sense of our journey so far. And we're not done. The work isn't done yet. We're getting close. But I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with how far we've come. Making this video forced me to sit down and think about how far we've come. Like I've mentioned, on average, the last 3 months, the amount of electricity we have needed to import from our utility is 25 to 45 on a house that consumes 20 to 2,500 kilowatt hours of energy. Pretty impressive. All right, thank you so much. Like we mentioned, we've covered a lot of this stuff before, and we'll do updates more often. You have any questions for us, by the way? Let us know. I have covered and installed so many batteries, so many inverters at this point. I'm a walking encyclopedia. Happy to help. And until next week, I'm Ricky with 2-Bit Da Vinci. Thank you so much for watching.